In the wake of North Korea repeatedly sending trash through balloons across the border, South Korea's military warns that it'll take stern military action if the regime's provocations cross the line. A set of deals were signed between South Korea and the Czech Republic to forge a nuclear power alliance as President Yoon Suk-yeol wrapped up his recent trip to the Central European country. Israel and Hezbollah have been engaged in a major conflict since the outbreak of the war in Gaza. The two sides continue exchanging heavy fire. It's September 23rd, 6 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Heung-min. We start with North Korea repeatedly sending trash-carrying balloons towards the south. This time, some 30 balloons landed in the South Korean territory. The military in Seoul sent a strong warning today, saying it'll take stern action if those pose a serious threat to people here. Our defense correspondent, Bae-in-ji, explains more.
Several trash-carrying balloons were spotted flying over Yongsan on Monday morning, near South Korea's presidential office in Seoul. They were launched by North Korea on Sunday evening as the regime resumed its balloon campaign, 4 days after a similar launch was made. Around 30 balloons carrying trash, paper, and plastic bottles landed in parts of Seoul and Gyeonggi-do province on Monday. Some of them even temporarily led to suspended flights at Incheon International Airport. South Korea's military, which has refrained from directly shooting down the balloons, has said it will not hesitate to take action if the balloons pose a serious threat to South Korean nationals.
If the trash balloons from North Korea pose a serious threat to the safety of our citizens or cross the line, our military will take stern action.
It added that the fundamental measure to put an end to the balloon campaign is to demonstrate that the enemy can gain nothing from them, but declined to further elaborate on exactly when the military would determine that the North has crossed the line or what the response measures would be. According to the JCS, North Korea has sent a total of 5,500 trash balloons since late May. They have been sending these balloons to protest against the anti-Pyongyang propaganda campaign by North Korean defectors and activists in South Korea, who regularly send over balloons carrying food, money, and leaflets criticizing the North leaders. In a tit-for-tat response, the South has been using frontline loudspeakers to blast broadcasts of propaganda messages and K-pop songs. Bae-in-ji, Arirang News.
Leaders of the Quad Security Dialogue have condemned North Korea's ballistic missile launches and its pursuit of nuclear weapons. In a statement following their summit in Wilmington, Delaware this past weekend, the heads of the U.S., Australia, India, and Japan also urged the regime to abide by UN Security Council resolutions and to refrain from further provocations as well to engage in dialogue. The Wilmington Declaration also shared concerns about North Korea's military cooperation with Russia and commitment to rid the Korean peninsula of nuclear weapons. Also in the U.S., the top diplomats of South Korea, the United States, and Japan will meet on the sidelines of the annual UN General Assembly in New York on Monday. This will be the first meeting in 7 months between South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol, his U.S. counterpart Antony Blinken, and Japanese counterpart Yoko Kamikawa. They last held talks at the G20 summit in Brazil this February. The three are expected to look at trilateral security cooperation, following up on agreements made at the Camp David summit, as well as discussing North Korea's recent provocations. In other news, a host of deals have been sealed between Seoul and Prague on nuclear energy partnership and more during President Yoon's visit to the Czech Republic last week. Our top office correspondent Oh Soo-young files this report.
South Korea and the Czech Republic adopted a joint action plan and dozens of deals to forge a so-called century-long nuclear power alliance. This came as President Yoon Suk-yeol made a 3-day official visit to Prague, after the Czech government selected the South Korean consortium as the preferred partner to build 2 nuclear units at its Dukovany power plant. Yoon's trip aimed to lay the groundwork to secure the final contract. with the two governments agreeing on a set of joint measures to develop their strategic partnership, which marks a 10-year milestone in 2025.
The signing of 13 memorandums of understanding related to nuclear cooperation signifies that the institutional foundation has been firmly established. The Korea-Czech Nuclear Power Alliance means cooperation across the entire nuclear ecosystem, including technology, operations, research and development, and workforce training.
Regarding complications posed by US firm Westinghouse, which claims intellectual property rights over Korean nuclear reactor designs, the official hinted Seoul is working with Washington to overcome the dispute and forge a win-win partnership.
The Korea-US Global Nuclear Alliance means we will cooperate to enhance energy security and enter the global nuclear market through highly efficient, clean energy and nuclear power in response to the climate crisis.
With over 50 MOUs concluded during his trip, Yoon also sought to ramp up cooperation with Prague in areas beyond nuclear energy. The bilateral trade and investment promotion framework aims not only to expand trade and investment, but also collaborations across various industries. A new supply chain and energy dialogue will cover advanced manufacturing, supply chains, carbon-free and civil nuclear energy. Further deals aim to foster cooperation in batteries, railroads and transport infrastructure, and reconstruction projects in Ukraine. Joint research and development between academic institutions will expand roughly 20-fold, with South Korea increasing its contribution to $37 million over the next decade.
Joint research areas will expand from mainly bio, chemicals, and materials to common areas of interest, such as aerospace, nuclear energy, AI, digital, and quantum science and technology. Competence in advanced science and technology is directly linked to national competitiveness, and recently, global cooperation has been reorganized among countries with shared values.
Underpinning all areas of cooperation are the two countries' shared values of freedom, democracy, and rule of law amid growing geopolitical rifts and challenges. In this regard, they agree to work together to develop standards on cyberspace, collaborate on defense, and promote closer cooperation between Korea and the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Prague also expressed support for Yoon's approach to peaceful unification with North Korea and efforts to denuclearize the regime.
Marking 35 years of diplomatic relations next year, Seoul and Prague will implement their joint action plan for strategic partnership until 2027. Seung, Arirang News, Prague.
South Korea's exports for the first 20 days of September fell despite surging semiconductor exports. According to data from the Korea Customs Service on Monday, the total value of exports for those 20 days came to $35.6 billion. That's a drop of just over 1% compared to the same period last year. This comes as a result of fewer working days due to the Chuseok holiday. However, the average exports per working day surged 18% on year. While items like cars, petroleum products, and steel saw declines, semiconductor exports jumped more than 26%. Despite the overall dip so far, a positive export trend is expected for the month, given the remaining number of working days and the typical year-end surge. In the Middle East, Israel and Hezbollah continue exchanging heavy fire amid fears of an expanded all-out war. Choi Soo-hyung has more.
The Israeli military said it carried out large airstrikes in Lebanon against Iran-backed Hezbollah on Monday morning. This was in response to detecting Hezbollah's plan to launch a major rocket attack in Israel. According to Lebanese media outlets, heavy airstrikes were seen in southern Lebanon, including the eastern Bekaa Valley and the northern region near Syria. Israeli military spokesperson Daniel Hagari said on Monday that geographically widespread bombing is underway in order to return northern Israel's residents to their homes safely, which Israel had announced as a new aim of the war.
The IDF will engage in extensive precise strikes against terror targets which have been embedded widely throughout Lebanon. The Hezbollah terrorist organization has been continuously launching attacks on Israeli civilians and has no plans to stop.
He also stated that they will do whatever is necessary to achieve this. And he called on residents of southern Lebanon to keep away from Hezbollah posts. This comes after Hezbollah on early Sunday launched its deepest rocket attacks towards Israel since the outbreak of the Gaza war in retaliation for the mass pager and walkie-talkie explosions last week. Reports say over 140 rockets were fired into northern Israel. Israel says most rockets were intercepted, while 4 people were injured from the attacks. Israel also launched hundreds of strikes on Lebanon as a senior Hezbollah official declared an open-ended battle was underway with both sides on the brink of an all-out war. The rocket attacks also follow Friday's Israeli airstrike in the Lebanese capital Beirut that killed at least 45 people, including 16 Hezbollah militants. In response to the growing conflict in the Middle East, U.S. President Joe Biden said on Sunday that Washington will do everything it can to prevent a bigger war. Earlier on the same day, White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby told ABC that the U.S. does not believe a military conflict or an escalation of the war is in the best interest of Israel, adding that Washington is holding direct discussions with the Israelis. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said he fears the possibility of transforming Lebanon into another Gaza. Cheong, Arirang News.
Staying in the Middle East, a gas leak causes a tragic blast at a coal mine in Iran, killing dozens of people. Lee Eun-jin reports.
Iranian state media said Sunday that 51 people were killed in an explosion at a coal mine in Iran's South Khorasan province, 540 kilometers southeast of the capital Tehran. The explosion, which occurred, according to IRNA News, in blocks B and C of a section of the Tabas mine, operated by a private Iranian firm, the Madanju Company, at 9 p.m. on Saturday night, also left around 20 people injured. The governor of South Khorasan said there were 69 workers in the blocks at the time of the explosion, 22 people in Block C and 47 in Block B, adding that it's unclear how many survivors are trapped inside the mine. Reports also said the explosion was caused by a methane gas leak. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and President Masoud Pezeshkian expressed condolences to the families of the victims, with the president adding that the best efforts would be made to follow up on the situation. A local prosecutor said gas accumulation in the mine has made search operations difficult, but that the priority was to help those injured and recover people from under the rubble. Ordering an investigation into the incident, authorities said potential negligence and fault for the explosion would be dealt with at a later date. Meanwhile, Iran's labor minister told state media that the mine went through inspections last month and there were no safety regulation violations. With 76% of the country's coal coming from this region, the Tabas coal mine covers an area over 30,000 square kilometers, and according to the IRNA, is considered the richest and largest coal area in Iran. But Iran's mining sites have seen accidents rather frequently. In 2017, an explosion at a coal mine killed 43 miners, while another last year, likely caused by a methane gas leak, resulted in 6 deaths. AP News stated that lax safety standards and inadequate emergency services in mining areas were often to blame. Lee Eun-jin, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in the U.S., Vice President Kamala Harris stands slightly ahead of former President Donald Trump in the latest public survey, and the sentiment in swing states remains even more closely contested. An Sung-jin with the details.
With around 40 days left till the 2024 U.S. presidential election, the two candidates are seeing a neck-and-neck race. Democratic nominee Kamala Harris is enjoying a slight lead in a recent CBS poll released on Sunday, which was conducted on more than 3,000 registered voters. Though within the margin of error, 52% of voters responded in favor of Harris, while 48% went for Trump. In individual battleground states, the difference was even less. In a poll conducted on voters from 7 swing states, including Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Nevada, Harris was ahead by 1 to 2 percentage points compared to the former president. This comes as heated exchanges continue between the two candidates, including the call for a second debate. Harris has accepted an invitation from CNN to participate in another debate with her counterpart, as she's set to release new economic proposals this week.
Well, you probably heard I would like another debate, so I'm hoping the former vice president will agree to that. But we have a lot more to discuss.
However, Trump has turned this down.
The problem with another debate is that it's just too late. Voting has already started.
Meanwhile, in a recent appearance on TV, Trump stated that he will not run in the 2028 presidential elections if he loses. If he wins this election in November, based on the Constitution, he will be unable to run for a third term. This implies that regardless of the election results, the 2024 election will be Trump's last. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Last Friday, the U.S. marked an annual day to honor its heroes of war who could not make the journey back home from the front lines, including those who went missing during the Korean War. A similar event also took place in Seoul. As our Kim Jong-sil reports, the event was smaller in scale, yet poignant.
Every year on the third Friday of September, Americans across the country honor U.S. soldiers who became prisoners of war or were designated missing in action. But this year, a new step was taken. On September 20th, U.S. President Joe Biden designated the date as National POW MIA Recognition Day. The day serves as a reminder of over 81,000 American men and women who remain missing from conflicts around the world, including more than 7,400 from the Korean War. In Seoul, at the War Memorial of Korea, a ceremony was held over the weekend. U.S. soldiers, chaplains, South Korean citizens, and supporters came together to remember those who never made it home. A solitary table was set with empty plates and glasses, symbolizing the absence of those still missing. Participants stood together as names were read aloud as a reminder of the 7,465 soldiers. Colonel Martin Cho, garrison chaplain at USAG Humphreys, said he feels a mixture of sadness and gratitude.
Thanksgiving coming up, but they have no those family members together, so very up and down emotion today. But I'm so happy today we held this historical event in Korea.
Remember Together 7697 chairman Han Jung-yun's mother was pregnant in Hwanghae-do province during the war. Wanting to leave due to the bitter cold, their fate changed when a couple of U.S. soldiers helped them board a train heading to the south.
When I saw the remains of U.S. soldiers return from North Korea in 2018, I thought maybe those who saved my parents could be among them. That moment changed everything for me.
As the U.S. continues its efforts to account for all missing soldiers, events like these serve as reminders that these men and women are not forgotten. Chairman Han and others say they are committed to ensuring their legacy lives on. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. Joining us, our sports editor, Paul Need. Hi, Paul.
Hello there.
Let's first start with football. Tottenham Hotspur returned to winning ways on Saturday, helped by Son Heung-min.
Yes, he got 2 assists in a 3-1 win over Brentford. He first teed up Brennan Johnson on 28 minutes, and then James Maddison on 85, helping Spurs come back from a goal down. And with those 2 assists, Son is now on 64 and has moved up to second in Tottenham's all-time assist record in the Premier League era, overtaking Christian Eriksen. 4 more and he'll overtake Darren Anderton. Son is also now 18th on the Premier League's all-time assist list. Spurs, though, they sit 10th in the Premier League, following 7 points from their first 5 matches. Meanwhile, in the Bundesliga, Kim Min-jae played the full 90 minutes of Bayern Munich's 5-0 win over Werder Bremen. Centre-back Kim was in fine form. According to FOTMob, his passing accuracy was at 92%. He won both of his tackles, both of his ground duels, and all 5 of his aerial duels. And German media outlet TZ gave him a rave review. With the win, Bayern made it 4 from 4 to start the new season.
And staying with football, North Korea's under-20 women's team has won the World Cup.
Yes, that's right. They earned a 1-0 win over Japan in the final at Estadio El Campín in Bogota, Colombia on Sunday local time. A Che Il-son goal in the 15th minute was the difference between the two sides. This is North Korea's third title overall. 17-year-old Che also won the Golden Boots, having ended the competition as the top scorer with 6. North Korea won every single match, scored 25 goals and conceded just 4 in 7 matches.
And moving into baseball in Korea's KBO League, the postseason is just around the corner.
It is indeed, yes, and the Kia Tigers have already earned the best record in the regular season. This means they're already through to the Korean series. They've been joined by the Samsung Lions too, who earned their spot on Sunday thanks to an 8-9 win over the Kium Heroes. LG Twins need just one more win to seal their spot, which could be as soon as tomorrow when they take on the SSG Landers. Once the regular season concludes at the end of September, 4th will play 5th in the wild card. The winners then face 3rd. Then the winners of that will go ahead with the Samsung Lions, who finished in 2nd. Then it is the Korean series.
Lots to look forward to then. And finally, to golf, another LPGA Tour win for Lydia Ko.
Yes, she won the Kroger Queen City Championship presented by P&G. Born in Seoul, the New Zealander on Sunday in Mainville, Ohio, finished 23 under par, 5 strokes clear of Atthaya Thitikul of Thailand. This is despite Ko being 2 shots behind heading into the final round. But a final round 9 under 63 was what sealed it for her. It's Ko's 3rd LPGA win of this year, 2nd in a row and 22nd overall. The last time she won 2 in a row was back in 2016.
All right, thanks for that, Paul. See you next week.
Thank you.
As the morning temperatures drop, fairly cool autumn weather has arrived. For the time being, large daily temperature differences of 10 to 15 degrees are expected, so make sure to bring a thin jacket when you're heading out. It's raining on and off on Jeju Island. Tomorrow between morning and day, it will rain a bit on Jeju Island. In addition, Jeju is expected to receive up to 20 millimeters of rain on Wednesday. By Wednesday, the East Coast, the coastlines of Gyeongsang-do provinces, and the coastal areas of Jeju Island will be flooded with waves. High waves can cross seawalls or coastal roads, so please be careful when approaching waterfronts. Tomorrow, Seoul and Gyeongju will start off at 16 degrees Celsius. Daily highs will move up to 27 in Seoul, Daejeon, and Daegu. Gwangju, Busan, and Jeju, 28 degrees. There will be mostly sunny weather in inland areas this week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session coming up.
Children's laughter, hope, dream. K-animation belongs in them. Interesting and valuable story that transcends between everyday life and dream. Surprising spectacle where imagination becomes real. An array of subjects catering from infants to adolescents. For our story to reach all corners of the world. K-animation makes healthy laughter for children.
K-drama, the charm of Korea that captivates the world. Love like a K-drama. A story of us where hope and despair coexist. Fun and refreshingly satisfying. K-dramas carry warmth and move people's hearts. Meet the fascinating stories of Korea through K-dramas.
Thanks for joining us. Coming to you live from Seoul, I'm Han-daeun. With just 6 weeks to go until the U.S. presidential election, early voting has begun in several states. In-person and mail-in voting commenced as the world closely follows the election landscape, especially after the televised debate between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. Meanwhile, tensions between Israel and the Iran-backed Hezbollah have escalated to dangerous levels, complicating U.S. efforts to stop the ongoing war in Gaza. Tonight, we zoom in on key factors shaping the race for the White House and assess Washington's role on the Israel-Hezbollah conflict. For some insights, Lee Mun-jung, Associate Professor of International Studies at Gwangju National University, joins us via Skype. Thank you so much for being with us.
Hello, good evening.
And with us from Washington, D.C. is VOA correspondent Jessica Stone. It's always great to see you.
Good to see you as well.
All right, so Jessica, let's start with you. Early and absentee voting began in several states, and reports indicate there's a high level of enthusiasm. Give us the latest updates.
Yeah, so according to the Center for Election Innovation and Research, there are 39 states around the country that offer voters a chance to vote early and in person. And among them, some really important states to watch: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Wisconsin. And in terms of enthusiasm, we just saw it right in my own backyard in Northern Virginia here. 2020, Fairfax County saw 1,200 voters on the first day of in-person voting. 2024, almost 4 times as many people voted over the weekend. They voted in 3 locations, about 4,232 people. And so you are seeing this uptick in enthusiasm for early voting. And of course, it's also more convenient for people, right? We have many days until the elections. They can do this on the weekends or on a Friday afternoon. According to Gallup, we're seeing a surge in Democrat enthusiasm. An August poll showed us that 69% say they are more enthusiastic than usual. That's up from 54% in March. So there's also a surge going on with this change in candidates at the top of the ticket for the Democratic Party. By contrast, we're seeing Republican enthusiasm, according to that same Gallup poll, drop. And that poll also shows that just 1 in 6 registered voters are still undecided. So it's a very tiny group of people that have yet to be convinced one way or the other as to November's outcome. Of particular interest, though, every analyst is watching this turnout with Generation Z and millennials, voters under 43, a key target demographic to watch, especially in these swing states, because they literally could make the difference between these 2 candidates come November.
Well, from President Biden's exit to 2 assassination attempts against Trump, it has been a tumultuous summer in the lead up to the election, hasn't it? And now the sprint to Election Day has begun. And Jessica, much attention has been drawn to the impact of the TV debate between Harris and Trump on the race for the White House. What has been the response from the public and the media, and how has it influenced recent polls?
So I think without question, the majority of analysts looking at the debate results said that Vice President Harris won that debate, that she made more cogent arguments. However, we have to remember that polling now is not only going to encompass the reaction to the debate, it's also going to encompass the second assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. Polling now reflecting both of those things, but Harris still ahead of Trump, although always within the margin of error. We're seeing some states even turn back towards Trump. But again, the margins are thin. According to CBS News, this is where everybody lines up at this point. Especially in the battleground states. I'm going to keep coming back to this as long as we talk about the election. These states are where the election is going to be decided. In Pennsylvania, they're tied with within the margin of error, which is 4 points. Michigan ahead. Harris is ahead within the margin of error. Same in Wisconsin, same in Nevada, same in Arizona, same in North Carolina, same for Nebraska. In Georgia, Trump is slightly ahead, but within the margin of error. And across the other recent polls, Harris leading in most, spreading to a 5-point lead in Sunday's NBC national presidential poll. But that same point that same poll showing a 16-point jump since July in her favorability, which is a good sign for her team in November.
So Harris is showing a slight lead in many post-debate polls, but it seems like there was no dramatic effect, with some even returning to Trump, as you pointed out. Now, in related to this question, Professor Lim, Harris was widely declared as the winner of the presidential debate, as Jessica mentioned, but the tight race continues. How do you see this?
Well, I'd like to highlight two things. Number one is today's American society is, South Korea too, actually, but is pretty much polarized, by every important issue, such as, of course, inflation, or, for example, stock market situation. Those kind of economic issue is one big pillar. At the same time, we do have much more like identity-related issues or human rights-related issues, such as the immigration or abortion, those kind of things. So these two combined together, again, economic issues together with the identity-related issues, again, the whole society is very much evenly divided. And in addition to this, the second point is, such a strange year this year. Partially because of the year as a blue dragon year. So such a dramatic things did happen. Again, the former president, Mr. Trump. Again, he faced two attempts, the two assassination attempts, which is, again, just outrageous. And the Democratic candidate was replaced in the middle of the campaign. So this is unprecedented, too. So having had all this kind of, dramatic situations, all this volatility, probably unexpected variables coming out, and not only just domestically, internationally too, we are witnessing two very tragic wars in Europe and in Middle East. And of course, North Korea is trying to attract attention from the Washington as well by escalating their provocation level, such as, again, of course, dirty balloon issues or missile issues. So having had all this external threats, again, I think those political situation can be shaken, again, by these kind of international affairs as well. So two things, again, number one is polarized society. Number two is, by some reasons, there have been so many unexpected events during this particular presidential campaign.
So America is almost evenly divided, and so whether the country will see its first female president or a second Donald Trump term is still too early to tell. Jessica, as the election nears, Harris and Trump have recently campaigned in key battleground states like Michigan, Georgia, and Wisconsin, and as you stressed many times, it'll all depend on those swing states. So what are their post-debate strategies to attract more undecided voters?
Well, I think a key strategy for the Harris team is that they're not doing a lot of interviews, especially with national news reporters. In fact, Axios has tracked the number of interviews that the Harris team has done compared to the Trump-Vance team. It's nearly 10 times J.D. Vance's interviews with the national media compared to Harris and Walz just having 7 interviews since Biden dropped out. The other thing is that when she does do interviews, she's doing them with specific groups of people, local reporters, African-American reporters, Hispanic reporters. She is on pace to do fewer interviews and press conferences than any other major party presidential pairing in history. So a key strategy point there. It's also risky, though, because many voters are still polling and saying they don't feel like they really know the vice president, even though she's been the vice president. They don't know a lot of her personal positions on different issues. She is also pushing a narrative that is very compelling to female voters in particular, which is that the Trump-Vance ticket is going to support a national abortion ban. That has been denied thoroughly by the Trump team, but it is still a very effective method of getting people to the polls, getting people animated around an issue. And then in North Carolina, You mentioned swing states. This is a swing state that the Harris team thinks they can flip because it was a very narrow margin win for Trump in 2020. And so they are focusing on tying him to a controversial a candidate there who's had a scandal, and that is their approach in North Carolina, and we'll see if it works. Now, in terms of the Trump team's approach and their strategy, they have been very effective in getting all of the court trials and all of the court hearings moved for Donald Trump to after the election. So those issues, which many of us thought would be in play this election cycle, all of the allegations against him, the trials, 7 or 8 different sets of allegations, they have focused on and been successful at delaying those court hearings until after Election Day. Then the other major thing they're doing on the get out the vote side, on the campaign side, they are focused on a very targeted approach to getting out the vote that some Republicans are questioning whether it's going to be effective. The Republicans have traditionally been knocking on doors, calling all kinds of people, getting people out to vote in a very non-targeted way. The Trump team has chosen to work with groups outside the campaign to turn out voters who didn't vote in 2020, but who have polled or indicated a support for Trump. So they're really trying to get a voter out that didn't vote in the last that didn't vote in 2020, I should say, but might be persuaded to vote in 2024. And again, there is some concern in the Republican Party that won't work, but we'll have to see if this targeted approach, because again, we're in a different media environment. We've been in a very bizarre and unusual election cycle, and certainly that is a different approach. So we'll see if it works, because we're in this digital age. Both of these candidates are reinventing some aspects of how they campaign.
We have just about 40 days left until Election Day. Professor Lim, what are the remaining key variables that could impact the election landscape?
I think still economic situation will be the most important variable. As the other panelist, Miss Jessica, explained very well, all these swing states, for example, again, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, all these swing states, they are experiencing so-called industrial transition. For example, more traditional industries such as natural gas, like fossil fuel related industries. Of course, Pennsylvania is one of the main states where those conventional fossil fuels are still very much important. But in Georgia, again, Georgia is pushing forward all this acceleration toward lower carbon society. Again, the South Korean companies, we vastly invested in Georgia-like state. So each state has, again, their own economic issues and job, of course, issues too. But in general, of course, inflation, the rate goes down. So that is why, again, the Fed, they were able to, again, to decide on the reducing the rate, again, interest rate last week. However, still probably ordinary people in the American society, still they are struggling with the high expenses of living. So how all this economic situation can really change the voters' mind, this will be, again, I think, still definitely number one variable, which remain as important until, again, the end of the day. The other variable I want to highlight is, again, the Middle East situation. This is deeply intertwined with American domestic politics as well. As you can see from the all this ongoing campaign, again, the Harris camp, they are trying to be in the middle, as far as I understand. Of course, they want to support, absolutely, they want to support Israel's defense right, but at the same time, they also trying to be sympathetic with the just innocent victims in the Gaza or in many other places. But steer that kind of, again, the position, can it be really successful by the election day? This is a huge question mark to me because of all this, very dramatic situations between Israel and Hezbollah or even Iran. And again, the Hamas, all this more like, tensions are going on. So how, probably those kind of, again, situations in the Middle East can be another variable for the undecided voter to determine their position. Again, some will probably just choose some candidate to stop the war, whereas some other voters will choose the other candidate to just support value. So it can be, I think, another big variable to determine again their position for the voter.
Attention is now shifting to the vice presidential TV debate between Tim Walz and J.D. Vance, set for October 1st. Jessica, what are the key watch points, and would it have an outcome significant enough to impact the race?
Yeah, that's going to be on October 1st. CBS News hosting it in New York City, which is not a battleground state, so it's an interesting choice of locations. It's going to be hosted by two female hosts, the premier Sunday show, which is typically the big political host, Margaret Brennan, and then Norah O'Donnell, the main evening anchor. We do expect Walz to kind of press into that every guy, normal guy, guy you want to have a beer with kind of image, leverage that and challenge Vance on his version of that image because they both come from the middle of the country. He's going to call attention, we expect, to sort of the Yale education, the private equity career that J.D. Vance has gone into. And Vance, in contrary, and he's been a real attack dog on the campaign trail, using a lot of his interviews to really criticize the other team and campaign heavily on the issues for Trump. He's going to paint Harris Walz as radical liberals, accuse them and their rhetoric of being responsible for the second assassination attempt on Donald Trump, and attacking Walz for falsely claiming that he served in combat. Both of these men have been in the U.S. military. J.D. Vance, a Marine public affairs officer, Tim Walz in the Army, and they will probably get into their military records. They've sparred over that in the past as well. Now, you talk about how important the VP debate is. I think, normally we don't see that it really moves the needle quite a bit because these are not the main decision makers on the ticket. But in this case, if we don't get that next debate between Trump and Harris, this could be the last debate before Election Day. And so that may give it more import for people. We'll have to see if people tune in. Again, it's not as clear that people are motivated by the second person on the ticket, but they do balance out the ticket. And so if this is the last debate, there may be more people watching, more people able to be swayed, saying, well, okay, this is sort of the other half of the White House ticket that I'm voting for when I make my decision in November.
And staying with you, Jessica, shifting gears to the Israel-Hezbollah conflict, what is Washington's stance on their worsening clash? And is it still optimistic about mediating a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas soon?
In a word, it would appear that no, they are no longer optimistic about that at all. The Wall Street Journal had an exclusive over the weekend citing White House, State Department, and Pentagon officials on background, or excuse me, not on background, but not cited as named. They all said there will not be a peace deal before the end of the Biden administration. They said or really, I should say that's a change because previously officials said both sides had agreed to 90% of the text. And what they keep saying is that Hamas will advance a set of demands. Israel will agree to them, and then Hamas will not move forward along those lines of agreement. There's also this major obstacle of the ratio of numbers of Palestinian security prisoners that Hamas wants to be released versus the number of hostages that Israel wants to be released. That number keeps increasing. And of course, what we're seeing between Hezbollah and Israel is not helping either. That strike on Beirut, killing a second Hezbollah commander, and now the order not to use any communication devices by Hezbollah and by Hamas in light of what happened with those pagers exploding in the pockets of those wearing them.
And before we wrap up, Professor Lim, how do you assess the possibility of the Israel-Hezbollah conflict spreading to a wider regional war?
I hope, definitely, I hope it can be, again, to settle down. But the thing is, I can't, even though I'm eager to see more like a kind of rapprochement or at least peace agreement, ceasefire at least, between the two parties. But I can't be that much optimistic because of all this ongoing situation. It's just escalating. So America, again, absolutely until, my guess is until the election day, I can't expect or I can't have a really hope to see a ceasefire kind of, again, agreement between the different party, again, before the election day, because everybody is watching this American presidential election. Of course, it's domestically, of course, it is important, such an important, of course, election is important, but especially this 2024 presidential election, it can make a huge impact domestically, but internationally too. So again, the Kim Jong-un also very closely watching the election, I think. So everybody is watching. So until the probably the election results come out, I can't expect any significant change can be made.
All right, we'll leave our discussion there, but we'll continue to keep a keen eye on the developments both in the U.S. and the Middle East. Thank you so much, both of you, for your perspectives.
Thank you for having me.
And that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for watching, and be sure to tune in same time tomorrow to join our conversation. Goodbye for now.
K-drama, the charm of Korea that captivates the world. Love like a K-drama.